Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and I'm super excited to be here today to speak with you about traveling with kids. In particular, we're going to focus on air travel with kids today, which is everyone's favorite way to travel with kids, right? A lot of people have hesitations and are reluctant to getting on a plane with a child, but I am here to give you some tips and tricks to help make the entire process not only doable but enjoyable for everyone. But my goal is to really inspire you to travel more and to get out there and see things and experience them, whether it be with your children, with your family, with your friends, or out there doing it alone. Just get out there and do it. Okay, let's get started. So I've been very fortunate in that I have traveled and lived in over 50 countries around the world. I've been traveling with my son on long-haul flights since he was 3 months old. And there's so many reasons that I believe you should travel with kids. Of course, there's the skill set. Kids learn to be adaptable. You have to be flexible. It exposes them to so many new ideas, new cultures. It opens their mind to the possibilities. And it also gives them a real appreciation for not only what's out there, but also what they have. And of course, you get to create amazing memories together. So when to travel with kids? Well, my experience has definitely been the sooner the better. The sooner you can get your kids used to getting on the plane, the experience itself, I think the better it is as they get older. My son is now 9 and it is so easy to fly with him now. He knows how everything works. He looks forward to it. We have some traditions that he anticipates. So it makes it just so much easier as they get older. In terms of what time of the year to travel, I would suggest in off-season if possible. Not only will the rates be lower, but often it's much less crowded, which can just make for a less stressful trip overall. The days of the week that I typically try to book flights are Wednesdays and Saturdays. I find that the rates are sometimes lower on those days. And then when it comes to the time of the day when to book the flight, it depends on the flight. If it's a short haul flight, I'll often do it during the day. But if it's a long haul, I may try to coordinate it with bedtime and have him set up so that he will sleep on the plane so that it doesn't make for such a long trip overall. One thing that is often overlooked is taking the time to explain to your child what is going to happen through this flight before the flight happens. So this can be extremely helpful, especially when your child hasn't flown before. So taking them through the process, explaining what's going to happen so that it's not a complete surprise when they go to the airport. I've even had some parents share with me that they play an airport game at home. So they'll basically take their child through the flight process, setting up different stations in the house. So it's simulating what will happen when they go to the airport. All these things just help put your child's mind at ease and can help keep them calm through the process. Next thing to consider is if you're taking a tablet, load it with books, games, movies, shows. I try to put new things on there so it's a bit of a novelty when he goes on. All right, next one is luggage. So you may have checked luggage, but you also want to make sure you take into consideration the luggage that you're going to have on the plane. Wheelie is fine for the overhead bin, but you do want to have a bag that has the essentials at your feet. The other thing to consider is whether you want your child to have their own bag. Sometimes that's a great idea and they like pulling it around and having ownership and putting some items in there that are uniquely theirs. And that's something that's different for everyone. So this next one can be a lot of fun and it entails buying a new toy or a special gift that doesn't need to be an expensive item, but it adds an element of surprise to the experience itself. So it could be a couple items from the dollar store. But whatever they are, they'd be something that would be special for your child or children and would be excited to receive. What can be really fun is to wrap the gift or gifts prior to the flight. For example, I used to wrap small race cars from the dollar store, and then I would give them to my son throughout the flight. Especially for long haul flights, it just made for a much more enjoyable overall experience. And he loved to get them and unwrap them, and it gave him something to look forward to. Another thing to consider if you are traveling with small or very young children, or it's their first flight, is to write a note to fellow passengers introducing yourself and a little bit about the situation. I'll put an example of it on the screen so you can see what I mean, but it's a great way to make some friends before the flight takes off. And it may help to minimize any uncomfortableness you may feel if your child does get upset on the plane. People are generally more than willing to help out and very understanding. All right, guys, getting on the plane. This can often be a very chaotic time. People are trying to find their seats. Where can they put their luggage? Be prepared before you get on the plane rather than trying to get organized on the plane. Okay, there's two things you want to do before you get on the plane. The first is to use the washroom. Despite hearing that nobody needs to go anyway, including yourself, because almost without fail, you sit down in the seat, and that's usually one of the first things that I would hear if we hadn't used the washroom before we got on. So use the washroom. Number two, fill up any water bottles and sippy cups. It can be very dry on the plane, and it's also great for pressurizing the ears when you're taking off to drink something. So water is the best thing for that. So fill them up before you get on the plane. All right, it's time to get on the plane. So I would always suggest pre-boarding. It gives you just that little bit extra time to get organized and settled on the plane before the rest of the crew comes in. In terms of seating, I usually have my son on the window seat. Sometimes with two parents, they like to have the child in the middle. The aisle seat I find is a bit more difficult. Two things. One, the child can end up moving into the aisle or want to take off. Or two, you've got in-flight service and people walking up and down and sometimes an arm hanging out or a leg, and they can get bumped or hurt. So it's easier on the inside seats. What do you need immediate access to is something else to consider. So you're going to likely have a bag in the overhead bin, but those items you won't have access to upon takeoff and landing. So remember that. You want to have the items that you're going to need for takeoff handy and generally under the seat in front of you or in a bag that your child has. Okay, so what do you want to put in this bag that you're going to have access to on the plane? The first thing is you want to make sure you pack a spare set of clothes for both your child or children and yourself. Next, you're going to want to pack some snacks. So in the next chapter, I am going to talk a bit more in detail about the clothing and the snacks. The next thing you want to pack in this bag is something to help pressurize ears. So it could be some gum, it could be a sucker, a sippy cup or a water bottle to drink some water while taking off is also very handy. I will look for a healthier sucker that isn't filled with high fructose corn syrup and lots of sugars. Take some wet wipes and large Ziploc bags. In case something happens, they're always useful. And of course, always have hand sanitizer. Things to get creative with for your child. So it could be a notebook with some pens, pencils, a book to read, something to play with, but something that they can have access to when they sit down to keep them entertained. I generally take the iPad or tablet with a set of headphones in there as well. I know when my son was younger, his favorite stuffy, a cuddly toy, just gave him some reassurance and some comfort when we were taking off. Depending on when the flight leaves, I will also take a pillow in there, one of those travel pillows. And if he's not wearing a sweater, I will have a sweater or a light blanket, a sari works, just in case he finds he's really tired and wants to kind of get cuddled in. I tend to pack a lot of snacks because I swear getting on the airplane is synonymous with I'm starving, regardless if we just ate or not. So I would pack things that are Generally easy to carry, easy to eat, meaning they're not going to make a big mess. Some healthy snacks for the plane that I often use are trail mixes, nuts and seeds, and there's different varieties out there and different flavor profiles. Cut vegetables, healthy dips to go with them, so a hummus or a guacamole, fruit, dried fruit, things that are easy on the plane and aren't going to make too much of a mess. Healthier granola and health bars. There are so many different kinds on the market right now. Just be sure to look at the ingredient deck. My experience has been if I can't understand what it is, it's generally not good for me. Not always the case, but ideally stay away from things with high sugars. Edamame, roast chickpeas, veggie chips, crackers, popcorn, apple chips. I'll even do as a treat maybe a potato chip, but again, I'll look for brands where there's not a whole bunch of ingredients in it. I like things that are quite simple and easy to understand. Okay, so what to wear on the plane and what to take on the plane. I would say layering is best and to be comfortable. So if we are somewhere warm and my son wants to travel in shorts, I would still take a sweater. I would still take a pair of sweatpants. It can get cool on the plane, so you want to be prepared for that. I would take an extra full set of clothes, including underwear and socks. I typically choose darker colors just because accidents can happen and then all of a sudden their socks are wet. Wear shoes that are really easy to slip in and out of, both for yourself and your child. Because planes can sometimes get cold, I like to have an extra sweater, or I may take a wrap, or if we're going somewhere warm and I have saris, I'll take a couple saris in there. Generally speaking, I like to take items that have multiple uses. When my son was born, and for the first 5 years that we traveled, we didn't have an iPad, so I didn't know anything different. But I have to say, since having an iPad, it's definitely something I would take on a flight with children. So make sure that it's fully charged. I would also bring a power cord with you and load any movies, shows, books, games. There's some really fun interactive games that you can also play with your children on the plane that you can load on the iPad. Games are great for the plane, especially games like cards. We are really into Uno these days, and magnetic games where the pieces cannot easily be lost. So magnetic checkers, I gotta say, is worth its weight in gold these days. Other things that I will take on the plane are drawing supplies. My son loves to draw, so I'll make sure that we've got pencils, pencil crayons, and lots of drawing paper. Books are also great for the plane. I will sometimes buy a new book for my son, which will be one of his gifts for the plane, or sometimes he brings a book himself as well. Other things that have been really useful and helpful over the years are craft items, so stickers, pipe cleaners. It's really amazing what kids can build with pipe cleaners. My son's really into Lego and wanted to build with just small Lego pieces on the plane. I must say this is not my favorite toy to take on the plane, but it did provide hours of entertainment on the plane. And for this reason, I also love Ziploc bags. It's so much easier if you can put separate toys in each Ziploc bag so that if your child wants to take out one thing, they don't have to take out everything. So all these tips are great, and I hope you find some of them very useful for your trips. I have to say, of all the tips, my number one tip that I could give is to manage yourself. And what I mean by that is there's going to be accidents, there's going to be mistakes made. It's how you're able to handle these things that will make all the difference. It's also how your children will learn how to respond to these things as well. So first of all, take care of yourself in the sense of make sure you're getting sleep, eat healthy, drink lots, move around, ask for help when you need it. You may be frustrated, angry. I would really encourage you to take a breath and to pause and to appreciate, because I think once I started to appreciate and be grateful for the time and the moment, everything else seemed to magically fall into place. I'll share with you a quick story from the holidays last year. My son and I had gone down to Central America. We were getting ready to board the plane, and there was a problem with some paperwork, and so it required a delay, and quite a significant delay because the embassy was closed down for 4 days. So we couldn't get the paperwork in order, we knew, for at least 4 days. So that being said, we're leaving the airport. I am extremely frustrated, very angry. We had spent a couple hours trying to make things work and contact people, and it just didn't come through. And we're leaving the airport, and my son looked upset. And he said, "I'm sorry, Mommy. I was wishing so well that I could have more time here with you, that I got my wish, but I know that it's very frustrating." And I was clearly very angry. And it really caused me to pause in that moment and to take a breath myself and realize that this was a great opportunity to spend some more time with my son. We could make a bit of an adventure out of it. And we had the most amazing week. It was probably one of our best holidays that week together. Completely impromptu, nothing planned. Things all came together like they usually do. And we had so much fun together. So what I learned from that, as I have many times, it was a nice gentle reminder that some of the most beautiful memories will come from moments where you think the sky has fallen. So thanks everyone. I look forward to seeing everyone's results from the class project, as well as your comments below.